Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello everybody, Bob Lust, the Pond Boss. Fall pond prep. What can you do? So I think in order to figure out some things that you need to do and that you should do, you got to know what's going to happen. So let's do a little fall forecast and see what is in store for you. And you know, the temperature triggers everything that happens. It triggers when plants go dormant. It triggers when plants come to life. Temperature triggers spawns. It triggers fish growth. And so we're coming into fall. Your water temperatures are going to begin to fall. What's going to happen is as the water temperature gets down out of the 80s, lower 90s, 80s, gets down into the 70s, that's going to trigger a lot of response. First of all, your plants' photo period's getting shorter. So the plants don't have all the sunlight that they need to continue to photosynthesize at the rates that they were even 6 weeks ago. So dropping the temperatures happens with nature, and then the consequences of that is plants begin to go dormant. If you want to treat them now, odds are higher that it won't work. Now, I'm not telling you don't treat plants, but talk to somebody that knows way more about it than you do before you do that. The temperature is the number one thing that you've got to pay attention to. And if you're watching the temperature, that's what triggers pretty much everything that happens biologically. It triggers in the springtime of the plankton bloom. It triggers when plants are going to grow. It triggers in the fall when the plants stop. You know, on the topic of plants, if you've come to the conclusion right now that you've got too much aquatic vegetation, you're too late. Should have done something about it back in June when it was becoming a problem. So when the water temperature drops below 80, then you start to see fish activity increase. They move more throughout that open water column above the thermocline. Somewhere around 75 to 70 degrees, the pond turns over. That's when the thermocline disappears. The bottom layer begins to slowly mix with the upper layer if the temperature drop is gradual. And then you'll begin to see the water column becoming autonomous top to bottom. Now, when a pond turns over, classic signs are you can smell it. It smells musty. You can see the water change color, and most of that's temporary. And the fish may not feed for a couple of days, depending on what volume of water you've got sitting below the thermocline, because that water below the thermocline has been there probably since May. And it's used up all of its oxygen. It's collected some gases, you know, from the decomposition organically down there, which is what used up all the oxygen. And then when that water mixes throughout the water column, those gases become saturated to the point where they release into the atmosphere, and you can smell it. And it can smell like anywhere between mild rotten eggs to kind of a musty, mildewy smell. Virgil Meyer saying current water temperatures, let me scroll down here, 75 at 1 foot and 73 at 3 feet. You're getting real close to your pond turning over. Yeah, you're getting close to it turning over. As the water temperature drops, fish feeding goes up dramatically, because what the fish want to do is they want to use the fall to gain as much weight as they can, develop eggs in advance of next year's spawn. Yes, they're developing eggs right now. And the more good, healthy nutrition they have, the better they're going to be able to develop those eggs. The more flesh they can put in their bodies, the more fat they can gain, the better they're going to come out of the winter on the backside and be more healthy. So if your food chain is not in order, figure that out right now. Bump up your feeders. You know, it's in the summertime I tell people to cut the feed back, but in the fall, bump it up. Bump it up. Get those fish to feed. Now, depending on where be sure that you're feeding effectively and efficiently, even if you got to pay more for a higher quality feed. The higher quality fish foods, like Purina's MVP, their Aquamax Sport Fish lineup, those feeds have got a high level of fish meal, good amount of fat, perfect amount of fat, the right vitamin packages, and the least amount of carbohydrates. Fish don't metabolize carbohydrates. The only reason carbohydrates even need to be in food is make the pellets stick together and make them be able to float. So right now, the fish are going to want to eat as much as they can. So check your food chain. And it's if your food fish numbers, bluegill numbers are low, shiner minnows are low, whatever forage fish you've got, if your numbers are low, consider stocking some, bump up your feeders. Trenton Evans, what temperature do you need to cut the feeders off? Feeding bluegill and hybrid stripers. All right, water temperature do you cut the feeders off? I cut it off when the fish stop feeding. Now, hybrid stripers and bluegill are going to feed much more actively than some of the other fish like catfish. They're going to feed down into the mid to low 50s. Hybrid stripers will too. One thing I've noticed that if you truly want to grow big bluegill and you're in a good climate where you're not going to be burdened with a whole lot of ice over the winter, you can let your feeder keep going. Just cut the feed way, way back, because there'll be some of the feed hogs with bluegills that will eat even when the water temperature drops down into the 40s, 45 or 46. But you just need to keep it cut back. If you're feeding MVP and you were feeding 5 seconds, cut it back to 2 seconds. And don't, if you got more than one feeder, don't use all of them. Just use 1 or 2 of them. And other than that, the feeding slows way, way, way down. Fall is a good time to do an electrofishing survey if you do that sort of thing. It's a good time just to get a snapshot of how well did your lake perform? How well did the fish perform? What kind of forage fish do you have going into the wintertime? I can't wait to go look at Bay's Lake. I know he's got 14.3 bazillion, gazillion, however many that is, little threadfin shad that are probably about like that now. So it's going to be fun to see how well the bluegill survived, how well the tilapia have survived. It's just going to be a fun time to go raise the hood in the fall and just see how well your lake performed. Then you can make decisions. That $1,500 you may spend on a survey. Some folks are going to say, well, can I just go spend $1,500 on some bluegill or golden shiners or fathead minnows or something like that? Well, sure you can, but that doesn't necessarily mean the lake needs it. And is that enough? Right now, the more you can move the water, the faster you're going to expedite its ability to cleanse itself. If you can get it to cleanse itself before you go into the wintertime, you're going to be jump start ahead of everybody else. What I tell people about aeration, it's, in the hot areas, you've been aerating, from like 10 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning or 9 to 9 or something like that. When these temperatures get down into the 70s, you can sure bump up your aeration system to run 24/7. And then do that until the water temperature hits 55 degrees. At 55 degrees, fish's metabolism rates have slowed way, way down, and that'll happen, just before you get into wintertime, depending on your latitude. Nashville, Tennessee, that's going to happen around Thanksgiving. In South Texas, it's going to happen around Christmas. And here where we are in North Texas, probably October, it'll still be in the 60s in October. So we're looking at November before our water temperatures get down into that 55-degree range. So run your aeration system, and once the water temperature hits 55 degrees, its affinity for oxygen is going up. Fish metabolism rates are going down. Plant photosynthesis and respiration is slowing down. And you don't have to keep your aeration systems going all the time. Now, if you live in a part of the planet where you do get ice over a long period of time and you want to figure out how you can help keep your pond open some to at least have a source of oxygen, and you've got bottom diffused aeration, move one of your diffusers or 2 of your diffusers up closer into shallower water. And you do that for a couple of reasons. You don't want to mess with the bottom water. The bottom water needs to stay as warm as it can, and in these cases where there's ice on a pond, the water in the deeper part of the pond is going to be 39 or 40 degrees, 41 degrees. Where at the surface, it's going to be freezing. Ice is 32 degrees, and it insulates those cold temperatures off those warmer temperatures at the bottom. Warmer temperatures help your fish make it through the winter time. Now, I do understand that some folks want to be able to keep some of the water open, like so a dock can't freeze up, or so you minimize the risk of winter kill. And if you aerate in shallower water, now each manufacturer that makes aeration system is going to have a different recommendation as to how deep is truly effective for diffused air. Well, find out what that is. I can't tell you how many times, probably 5 or 6 times over my career, I've heard a really sad story about someone who was aerating a pond, had a hole open in the middle, the ice was weak, and somebody drowned. I've heard many cases of deer drowning. So be thoughtful if you want to aerate over the wintertime. And right now is the time to be preparing for that. You know, right now, the more you can move the water, the faster you're going to expedite its ability to cleanse itself. If you can get it to cleanse itself before you go into the wintertime, you're going to be jump start ahead of everybody else. Water chemistry. I think it's a good time to take a look at your water chemistry. If you've got issues with a heavy plankton bloom this time of year, you might want to have that looked at. You know, you can find Bill Cody on the Pond Boss discussion forum. Ask the Boss at pondboss.com. Talk to him about it. That guy's a genius, and he's happy for like $40 to analyze a sample of water to let you know what you've got in it going into the fall. Now, that's in terms of what's microbiology is in it. What kind of algae do you have? Do you have blue-greens? Do you have planktonic algae? What do you have? Now, water chemistry, that's a whole different thing. That's where you check your pH and your alkalinity and some of the different cations and anions and all that kind of technical science stuff that guys like me can help you interpret. You know, now's a good time to do that. Texas A&M Soil Sciences Lab has got a good lab. So does the Aquatic Diagnostic Lab at Texas A&M. There's good folks there that can help you figure all that stuff out. You know, how are the fish going to behave? Well, all summer long, they have sought the best temperature. Now the best temperatures are going to seek them. So you're going to see fish moving shallow. You're going to see bass that have been sitting down near the thermocline at 15 feet or 9 feet or whatever it is in your lake. They're going to want to move up, and now that their operating temperature is getting to be prime, they're going to want to be aggressive. They'll be easier to catch. They're going to fight like crazy, and they're going to feed like crazy. So there's some intel for you about fall pond prep. Study your vegetation. Do water chemistry if you think you need to. Bump up your feeders. Make sure that your food chain is in order. And what that means is there enough? Is the cafeteria open and are all the plates full? And if they are, you're good to go. It's a good time to be culling fish. Cull some of the underperformers. Right now is a great time to begin culling if you haven't been doing that. And do that by measuring lengths and weights and comparing that to standards for that species of fish. And if you need a copy of our spreadsheet, just send me an email at info@pondboss.com. Say, hey, Bob, I'd like to have that spreadsheet. I think the spreadsheet's got largemouth bass, largemouth bass. It's got crappie. It's got bluegill. I think it's got channel cat in it, where you can plug in links and weights and get a good representation of what your fish are like. Pond Boss magazine, $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. And I promise you, there's all kinds of good nuggets in this magazine. I mean, this is what fuels the economy of Pond Boss. This magazine, the advertisers in it. I promise you, these advertisers, I've vetted them. I know these people. A lot of the advertisers in here, I've got a personal relationship with. I trust them. I trust them with my business. I trust them with yours. And that's a big part of the reason why we keep printing Pond Boss is when we get these advertisers out there. So, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up right here. Call it a day. Adios for now.
Hey, Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.